Welcome back to the Empire Builders podcast. I'm Dave Young, and Steve Semple is here with another topic for me. Well, and you. It's not just a conversation between Stephen and I. We invite you to participate. So today's topic, I've not heard of this product. I don't think. I mean, unless it's a sunscreen called Sun Bum. Is that what you
Yep,
said? Sun
BUM.
Bum.
Yep, BUM.
So I'm not familiar with it. I hesitate to guess. Let's hear the story.
The reason why you want to listen to this story, so let me tickle your interest because there may be a bunch of people who may not have heard about this business. It was founded in 2009, and
Okay.
9 years after founding, it was sold to S.C. Johnson for the tune of $400 million.
Nice. That's
Do
a
I now
cool
have your
payday for some.
attention?
Oh, absolutely. Tell you why I haven't heard of it. I came indoors in 2009 and I haven't gone out again since. Yeah,
That may be
that's it.
it. So it said, founded in 2009, 9 years later, sold to S.C. Johnson for $400 million. So when you see something like that, it catches my attention. So one of the main players behind Sunbum is a guy by the name of Tom Rinks. And Tom grew up in Long Beach, California, and then he moved to Grand Rapids, Michigan, where he studied art at Hope College. And after graduating from college, he worked at a chain furniture store where he was on, straight commission, one of these eat what you kill stores.
Mm-hmm.
But he did well enough. He was able to support his wife. She was able to stay at home with the kids. And he talks about in interviews that this was really important because he learned how to sell. And it's so
Mm.
important knowing how to sell. And he really learned how emotional the sales process is. So 5 years after being at Art Van's Furniture, he becomes a sales manager. And part of the reason he becomes a sales manager is he learns what to do to make sales. So an example is if you have a woman sitting on a leather couch, he would send over a guy to talk to the woman and talk to her about how soft and sexy and smooth the leather is. If there was a
Okay.
man sitting on the couch, he would send a woman over to talk about how strong and cool and rugged and sexy the couch is. But that it would use that language. If it was a family, he would send over you, Dave, an older guy, to talk about how good an
Wait a minute.
investment it is. He would send over an older guy to talk about how great an investment it is and easy to clean.
Oh, yeah.
Same couch, three
Yeah.
different messages, right?
No, Steve, this would never work because we are completely rational beings.
Correct.
And
Absolutely.
these kinds of things would never fool anyone.
Never fool anyone. But what he keyed into onto, it's what the customer wants to feel. So it's
Yeah.
what they want to feel about the product. He would even do things like he would do announcements of furniture pickups, even if there was none. Furniture pickup in Bay 3 for the Johnsons, just to create this impression of things selling. And he found when he did that, they sold more.
Yeah.
So he learned all of these things about creating impression and what the customer feels that informed him later in life. So he started doing this side gig as t-shirts. So he's at a beach one day in Michigan and he sees these surfers on the water, which him being from California was a big shock. He's like, people surf in friggin' Michigan?
Surfers in Michigan?
And so he decides to sketch this cartoon of an old guy on a surfboard waiting for the big one, right? And he titled it Surf Michigan. So he created this t-shirt called Surf Michigan, and the whole thing was waiting for the big one with this old guy on a board. And one day on his lunch break, he decides to call Myers, which is a big store in the Michigan area. It's kind of like a Target, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And he asks to speak to the surfwear buyer
Uh-huh.
because he's a rep for a surf line, is how he positions himself. And he gets a chance to do a presentation. He's in Meyer, and he goes into the room where he's supposed to. There's this great big huge rack where you can put all your wares out to show the buyer, and he has this one T-shirt that
One
he hangs
t-shirt.
up on the rack. And when the buyer comes in and looks at the one T-shirt, he comes clean with the rep, and he says, like, I'm not a rep for a line. I was just at the beach, and I created this one T-shirt. But you know what? She decides to look at it anyway. She looks at it and she buys 1,800 of the shirts.
There you go.
He then goes out and he buys 1,800 Hanes t-shirts and takes them over to a
He's
local
got to make them
printer,
now. Yeah, they've been
has
sold.
them printed. And he does this for a couple of years. And the
Okay.
next thing he notices, he's in Ann Arbor and the basketball team, like the Michigan State basketball team, is doing really well and it's really blowing up. And he looks to buy a Michigan shirt with a basketball and he couldn't find anything. So he goes to the University of Michigan and he gets a licensing, which today would not be possible. Like he
Yeah.
literally went to the university because at the time it was done in-house at the school.
Yeah.
Today it's now all centrally run. But he creates a t-shirt called Slam Dance for the University of Michigan, which is a guy swinging from a rim. And he took it to the university and he sold a bunch of them on campus. He went to the campus stores and he ended up selling like 10,000 shirts.
Hmm.
He does this with a couple of other schools. And in the process of doing this, he meets a guy by the name of Joel Shields, who's also making shirts and doing these really great designs. So they decide to start a company together. But the stuff wasn't selling all that well. Then one day he saw a picture of Madonna with her chihuahua called
Mm-hmm.
Chiquita.
Mm-hmm.
And so they decide to make this line of shirts called Psycho Chihuahua. So they make this like psycho looking chihuahua and they put these words on it, things like bite me, big dogs suck, stuff along that lines. And they end up selling tens of thousands of them. So they go to this superstore for apparel and it's just blowing up. And then they decide to go to a licensing show in New York. So it's one of these shows. It's held in the Travis Center in New York. And they get a booth. And it's one of these shows where everybody goes to who wants to do licensing. And there's lots of buzz around it. And Taco Bell come to their booth. And they decide to do a licensing deal with Taco Bell. So they do these designs, they create these commercials, they create toys, all sorts of stuff. And one day, all of a sudden, Taco Bell stops taking their calls. And they've been designing these TV commercials and all sorts of things for them. And this is 1997. And so they thought the idea was dead until one day the ad runs. Do you remember the whole Taco
Yo
Bell?
quiero Taco Bell. Yeah.
They created that idea.
Okay.
And the first three commercials were exactly what they created, but Taco Bell cut them out of it. So they decide to sue Taco Bell. And it takes them 5 years, and they end up suing Taco Bell for $40 million.
Stay tuned. We're going to wrap up this story and tell you how to apply this lesson to your business right after this.
Nice one.
Thanks.
We should do this more often, man.
I wish we could.
And why can't we?
It's my business.
What about it? Thought everything was good.
It was.
Do I hear a but in there?
Sales have started to flatten, and we're down over last year.
Oh.
Can't figure it out. Tried a bunch of stuff. Putting in more time doesn't seem to make a difference.
Yikes.
It's frustrating.
Have you spoken to Steven?
Who?
The host from the podcast we just interrupted?
No.
Why not? I thought you were trying stuff.
I am, but what's Steven gonna do?
He'll work with you for free.
You mean that starter session thing?
Yep.
I don't know.
What do you have to lose?
Not much, I guess.
So, you gonna book one?
Yeah, why not? Where do I do it again?
I think you can do it right from this podcast.
Cool, thanks.
You bet.
We really should do this more often.
Golf more or interrupt this podcast?
Over to you, Dave.
Book your starter session on this podcast's website. Just visit theempirebuilderspodcast.com and click on Get Started. Let's pick up our story where we left off, and trust me, you haven't missed a thing. So my recollection of that campaign, and correct me if I'm wrong, like it didn't actually bump Taco Bell's sales, but it did spike the sales of Chihuahuas in the U.S.
And you're right. But the other thing it did is it actually killed their t-shirt business because they had that Psycho Taco Bell t-shirt business. And suddenly it's the knockoff and people wanted the real stuff, right? So their business like literally dies and end up shutting it down. They do sue Taco Bell. And in this process, Tom Rinks meets Rene Canetti and they become partners. And Rene's from Copenhagen and he does these great brand designs. And they get involved with this nonprofit that they're working with. And from the result of the nonprofit in 2007, they decide to start a branding agency together. And the deal that they did in this branding agency is they would always get a piece of the company. So they would do the work for a fee plus get a piece of a company. And they did all sorts of brands such as high-end tequila. Then in 2009, they're approached to do sunscreen. And it's a friend from school days, and they're asked to take a look at it. And there's quite a wealthy backer to this whole business. And they had a name and a concept, but it was losing money. And the name was terrible. The names were terrible. The concepts were terrible. One of the names was called Sunbum, and it was clip art of this guy hanging in this hammock. And basically, Tom Rinks says to them, these ideas are absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible. They asked him to look at it, and he knew the beach world, and he saw this gigantic hole. There was all these big players, but there was no interesting, authentic brands. So at first, he ditches all the names. At first, he ditches them all. And here's how his process is. It's a 3-month process. They do a month of research, a month of thinking, and a month of design. And one day they're looking around and they're going for lunch, and they pass by a museum of contemporary art, and they saw furniture, and they were really attracted to the wood grain and curves. And so they decided to put a wood grain pattern on the bottle. And if you look at the bottles today, it's got this wood grain pattern.
Yeah. So while we were talking, I Googled them just to see the images of the product. Yeah, and once I saw that, I know I've seen this product before. I do go indoors in stores and Walmarts and things like that, and it's like, oh yeah, there's the sunscreen stuff. Oh yeah, I recognize it.
And like what often happens with you and I, Dave, and we were sharing earlier about how there's a new client that we're working with where I started off hating the name, and then all of a sudden something happens and you end up loving the name because you can create a campaign around it. He hated the name Sunbum until he came across this idea of trust the bum, protect your lazy bum. Then it all came together. And he's like, wait a minute, we can make this work, but we need a character. He was like, we need a character, and not a surf character, because that's too on the nose, right? And again, we often talk about these things where if it's too on the nose, it's not interesting. They created a monkey, and then it ended up becoming an ape. And they looked at all sorts of different art designs, and they ended up landing on Japanese street art. And so they looked at it, they created this monkey that's this kind, or not this monkey, this ape, that's kind of this Japanese street art, who's this badass ape wearing glasses that just stands out, just totally stands out. So what they started to do is they created the image of the ape, no words, but could be put on anything. Didn't even say sunbum. No words. You could put it on footballs, you could put it on hats, you could put it on towels, had no names, and they would go to a surf area and just sticker the crap out of everything. They would put the stickers wherever they could find it. And so they went to the surf expo in Orlando, and there's this great buzz for Sunbum. People kept coming up saying, I want more of the stickers. I want more of the stickers. And this created this whole buzz around Sunbum because people were asking, like literally radio stations would be getting calls going like, what is this ape that we keep seeing everywhere?
Oh, wow. That's awesome. So just guerrilla marketing. I mean, that's the literally guerrilla marketing.
Literally. Here's the part that was really, really interesting is they would create these ones without the name. They were bold enough to do it without the name. And this created this real buzz. And in the first year, they sold $100,000 worth of product. In year 2, 1.1 million. 9 years later, they're selling enough that they get bought for $400 million. And at this point, Tom had shut down the advertising agency, and he was actually brought on to run the business. So he had done that pivot. But here's one of the other things that they did that was also interesting. He understood display and the idea of needing to seem bigger. Remember the lesson they had from the furniture store? You know, stuff selling out the back, making it seem bigger. So when a store approached them to run their line, they couldn't just pick up a couple of things. They had to take this entire display. So they built this display that had frisbees and footballs and a gorilla on the top of it and all sorts of product. They really held their own on that. No, you've got to take the entire display. So everything seemed bigger and more glamorous and stronger and whatnot. And, you know, they ended up really blowing up the sunscreen business and being this huge success.
That's an amazing story. And I think it's what's cool about it is there are loads of industries where there are so many products and such a wide, diverse range of products that there's an opportunity for somebody to come in and just shake things up and stand out, right? To just do things differently, be bold about your marketing, be bold about how you're getting yourself recognized in your core demographic. This has got to be in a textbook somewhere, right? This is exactly how you do this.
Well, and what I found very interesting was this whole idea of the original stickers that they made did not have the company name on it.
If you do a Google search for Sunbum logo and look at images, you'll see loads of these stickers that you're right. They have just the gorilla face. no logo,
Yeah.
nothing. And
Right.
it's just mostly stickers. Yeah.
And what they knew is if people got fascinated with it, they would figure it out.
Yeah.
And when you figure it out, you feel involved.
It became one of those, if you know, you know,
Yes.
right? It's kind of an insider thing. People that know, and they recognize the stickers, and they you wouldn't know if you weren't part of the sun-seeking crowd.
And it
Like,
made it
I didn't
cool.
know, right?
Right.
I was not part of the sun-seeking crowd in that time.
Would you put that sticker on your surfboard if it had the company name on it? Probably
No.
not.
Yeah.
Would you put the sticker on your surfboard where it's this cool gorilla with this attitude? Absolutely.
Yeah. You'd put it on the back window of your car,
Yes.
right? And you're saying to other drivers, I'm one of you. If you know what
Yeah.
this is, I'm one of you. We are
Yes.
like-minded. We go to the beach, we surf, we do all the things that take place in the sun.
Meanwhile, so many customers is like, oh no, I got to get the logo and I got to get the name and I got to
Yeah.
also, oh geez, I also got to let them know what it is I sell and do. And it's like, not necessarily.
And then all of a
Not
sudden you're at the
necessarily.
store just looking for some sunscreen, and yeah, there's all the copper tone crap, there's all the other stuff. And it's like, oh, look at this, the gorilla, the product range. I'm gonna feel like I'm a little bit cooler than I really am if I buy one of these.
See, and there's where you're brilliant, Dave. And this is where this campaign was brilliant. If we put the stickers around, what we
Hmm.
know is a person buys sunscreen in the store. When they go walking into the store, they're now going to see, because remember, again, they insisted on the big display. They're
Yeah,
going to see the big display and go, oh my God, I didn't realize that was sunscreen.
that's
I'm going to
what
buy
that is.
some.
Yeah, they're gonna
That's what
connect the
that is.
dots.
You're going to
Yeah,
connect the dots. And in that
yeah.
moment, you're going to feel like, oh, I'm now part of that hip in crowd.
And when you connect the dots, you're gonna get a little bit of a dopamine rush.
Yes.
You're gonna feel a little sense of accomplishment.
Yes.
Right? You're gonna feel like you're part of it, and what you've done is they gave the consumer an opportunity to participate in this little quest of finding something out,
Yes.
right? You keep a little bit of mystery hidden, and, when people find it, there's a delight factor to it that, you can't plan that, and you can plan it, but you certainly don't wanna say it in your ads.
Yes. Right. Well, as soon as you say it, the mystery is gone. So to me, it was a brilliant marketing campaign, brilliant marketing campaign, and a bold marketing campaign. And again, what Tom learned a lot of this from, it's about how you make people feel. He learned that in his experience in the furniture business, and then creating these really cool ideas like, the chihuahua and whatnot. He knew, okay, if we create this thing and people connect with this thing, they want it. When I came across it, I was like, wow. And to start a business and then 9 years later to be selling it for that type of price, you've done something. Like you've really moved mountains.
Very cool story. Maybe I'll go outdoors now. I live in Texas, and we're recording this in August. I'm probably not going out.
No, not for another couple of months.
No. We'll see you at happy hour in October.
All right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. All right. Thanks, David.
Thank you, Stephen. Thanks for listening to the podcast. Please share us, subscribe on your favorite podcast app, and leave us a big, fat, juicy 5-star rating and review. And if you have any questions about this or any other podcast episode, email to questions@theempirebuilderspodcast.com.